Welcome back to 100 Sleepy Facts. Welcome back to 100 Sleepy Facts. In tonight's episode, we journey back nearly 100 million years to uncover the mysterious life of one of the strangest and most debated dinosaurs ever discovered, Spinosaurus, the river king of a burning world. Was Spinosaurus truly the longest carnivorous dinosaur to ever live? Was it really a swimming predator that ruled ancient rivers? And could it have been even more unusual than we once believed? As we drift through prehistoric wetlands, forgotten fossils, lost discoveries, and scientific controversy, you'll discover how this sailback giant reshaped everything we thought we knew about dinosaurs. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to 100 Sleepy Facts and let us know in the comments. Do you believe Spinosaurus was fully aquatic? Or do you think the mystery is still unsolved? Now get comfortable, take a slow breath, and let's travel back to the rivers of the late Cretaceous. Spinosaurus, the river king of a burning world, Part 1. The desert offered no hint that colossal creatures had once navigated its waters. It was a realm of unrelenting sun and profound silence, a seemingly endless expanse of sand that feigned an eternal emptiness. Heat waves danced above the dunes, a shimmering mirage that distorted the horizon with an almost purposeful deception, as if the land guarded secrets it desperately wanted to keep buried. Dr. Layla Nasser, her brow slick with perspiration, fixed her gaze on the distant ridgeline, Morocco, present day, the Kem region, renowned for its fossil wealth, infamous for the contentious debates it fueled, famous for being the kind of place that demanded paleontologists become more than just scientists. They had to be detectives. Behind her, the team's SUV ground to a halt on the harsh gravel, its engines sighing in exhaustion. A generator's hum filled the air. The clink of equipment resonated. Someone unfurled a large tarp, creating a temporary haven from the sun's oppressive glare. The sky stretched above, a boundless expanse of intense blue that seemed to defy any interruption. And yet an interruption was precisely what they were hoping for. Layla's tablet chimed as the drone completed its reconnaissance and returned. A map materialized on the screen. Arid riverbeds, jagged rock shelves, ridges resembling ancient fossilized bones. She zoomed in, her fingers tracing the digital landscape. There, a subtle pale line curving from the rock face like a delicate question mark etched in stone. A jolt of excitement surged through her. She'd examined enough fossils to understand the silent language of erosion, the relentless way time peeled back the layers of Earth, the way long-lost secrets resurfaced when the planet wearied of its vigil. This was not just a random geological feature, this was an invitation. Could just be another crocodilian, Omar, her seasoned field assistant, grumbled, his eyes squinting at the screen. Years in the desert had taught him a healthy dose of skepticism. He'd seen too many discoveries turn into dust. Could be, Layla conceded, but her voice carried a quiet conviction that betrayed her true feelings. This felt different. They were here, after all, in pursuit of a creature that had always defied easy categorization, a dinosaur that stubbornly refused to fit neatly into any established box, a predator whose length dwarfed the celebrated tyrants of North America, yet whose very form suggested an affinity for water, a life spent as much in the rivers as on the land, a beast whose story had been fragmented by bombs, painstakingly reconstructed, fiercely debated, and constantly reimagined over and over, until it was less a single tangible animal and more a swirling vortex of competing theories. Spinosaurus, the spine lizard, the river king, they traversed the final stretch on foot, their boots crunching on the gritty, flint-laden ground. The relentless wind whipped fine sand into their faces, finding every crevice in their clothing, every crack in their lips. Layla's boots slipped slightly as she descended into a shallow ravine. Ravine walls were a tapestry of layered rock, striped in hues of red and brown like faded bruises. Then she saw it. Not a complete skull, not a fearsome claw, not a dramatic tooth gleaming like buried treasure. Just bone, a single, eloquent curve of bone, pale against the stark darkness of the surrounding stone. But it was enough. Layla knelt, her movements careful, reverent. She brushed away the clinging sand with her fingertips. The fossil, even in its lifeless state, felt dense and heavy, its surface weathered by eons but stubbornly intact. She traced the subtle ridges, the reassuring thickness. Something about its weight and texture evoked the image of ballast in the hull of a ship. Dense bones, buoyancy control, a body not designed to float aimlessly but to navigate the water with purpose and precision. Omar exhaled, his voice hushed with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "That's unusual, Layla." "It's exactly what I hoped for," Layla whispered, her eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and vindication. Above them, the sun blazed down, indifferent to their discovery, but in her mind's eye, the harsh desert was already beginning to dissolve. The sand transformed back into the clinging mud of a prehistoric riverbank. The air thickened, heavy with humidity and the promise of life. The oppressive silence shattered, replaced by the drone of insects, the calls of exotic birds, and the gentle lapping of a primeval river against its banks. Because 100 million years ago, roughly between 100 and 93 million years ago during the late Cretaceous, this place wasn't a desert at all. It was teeming with life. A tropical paradise of interconnected waterways, a verdant and brown labyrinth where fish grew to monstrous sizes and predators evolved into specialized hunters, a place where the Sahara, now a symbol of desolate dryness, was once a vibrant tapestry of rivers and sprawling floodplains. Layla closed her eyes, letting her imagination transport her back to the late Cretaceous, the very age when Spinosaurus ruled, and then, because her life was anything but ordinary, a strange departure from the predictable path of most scientific careers, she didn't just imagine it, she went there. They called the device the chronoframe, a name that sounded more at home in a cheesy science fiction program. In reality, it was a marvel of theoretical physics and a terrifying leap of faith. A portable experimental gate that could anchor to a specific geological signature and open a fleeting window into a targeted time slice was the culmination of years of research, countless setbacks, and a healthy dose of scientific hubris. It wasn't intended for human travel. It was designed for remote scanning, for high-resolution imaging, for dispatching sensors into the past to gather crucial data, temperature readings, salinity levels, pollen samples, microbial signatures, all without risking contamination of the delicate timeline. A non-invasive archaeological probe, but funding was always scarce, competition was ruthless, and the modern world craved discoveries packaged with cinematic flair. So Layla did what almost every scientist secretly dreamt of but swore they would never actually do. She stepped through. The air struck her first, warm, almost suffocatingly wet and heavy with the mingled sense of decaying vegetation and rich river mud. Her lungs expanded, filling with an unfamiliar richness, like breathing through the very essence of life itself. It was an invigorating and slightly unsettling sensation. She opened her eyes. The Sahara had vanished. In its place stretched a vast and intricate river system, a network of braided channels shimmering under the Cretaceous sun. Palm-like plants leaned precariously over the muddy banks, their fronds casting dappled shadows on the water. Giant ferns crowded the undergrowth, forming a dense emerald curtain. Insects buzzed incessantly, creating a constant background hum. The sky was a pale, hazy canvas, thick with moisture and the promise of afternoon storms. It was midday, yet the sun's intensity was tempered by the pervasive humidity. She stood on a muddy embankment, her boots sinking slightly into the yielding earth. Somewhere in the distance, a large creature splashed, the sound echoing through the dense foliage. Layla's body went cold despite the oppressive heat, because she knew exactly what kind of predators lurked in these waters, not just Spinosaurus, but the other monsters it shared this primeval world with, colossal crocodilians, rival theropods, and giant fish, some armed with bizarre, saw-like snouts. And somewhere within this living labyrinth, the River King moved, a shadowy predator at the apex of its domain. She held herself perfectly still, her senses on high alert, listening for any sign of danger. Every rustle of leaves, every splash of water could signal a potential threat. A ripple disturbed the surface of the water about 50 meters away, not the playful jump of a fish, not a random swirl caused by the current. This was the unmistakable displacement of a large mass moving deliberately beneath the surface. Then the water broke, shattering the calm. A head emerged from the river, rising like a waking nightmare made elegant, long, narrow, and undeniably crocodilian in its overall shape, with a snout perfectly adapted not for tearing flesh from bone, but for gripping slippery prey that fought with desperation to escape. A head emerged from the river, rising like a waking nightmare made elegant, long, narrow, and undeniably crocodilian in its overall shape, with a snout perfectly adapted not for tearing flesh from bone, but for gripping slippery prey that fought with desperation to escape. The skull alone was absurdly long, easily exceeding a meter, and Layla recalled the scientific estimates, over 1.5 meters in some reconstructions, a head designed as a weapon. It held a fish in its jaws, a creature that looked like a massive salmon, silver and still writhing feebly, and its teeth were not the serrated blades of Tyrannosaurus rex, but straight conical spikes, ideally suited for holding, not slicing. That was one of the most definitive signatures of the Spinosaurids. They were first and foremost fish eaters, specialists in aquatic predation. The creature lifted the fish slightly and with a slow, deliberate crunch adjusted its grip. The fish ceased its frantic struggles. Layla's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the prehistoric world. She wanted to run, to flee back to the safety of her own time. She also felt an overwhelming urge to kneel in awe, as if in the presence of a living god. Most of all, she wanted to do what every paleontologist secretly yearned for, and also deeply feared, to observe the living animal firsthand, to compare it to every educated guess she had ever read in countless scientific journals. The dinosaur shifted slightly, turning its massive head. Most of all, she wanted to do what every paleontologist secretly yearned for, and also deeply feared, to observe the living animal firsthand, to compare it to every educated guess she had ever read in countless scientific journals. The dinosaur shifted slightly, turning its massive head. Its nostrils were positioned far back on its skull, not near the tip of its snout, as in most land-dwelling predators, but closer to its eyes. Another adaptation for its semi-aquatic lifestyle, an evolutionary advantage that allowed it to breathe while the front of its snout remained submerged, ready to strike. Spinosaurus, not a fossilized rumor, not a painstakingly reconstructed skeleton, real. It began to wade forward, and Layla saw more of it. The powerfully built shoulders, the muscular forearms equipped with large curved claws. One claw in particular stood out. Its thumb claw, longer, heavier, a formidable hook designed to snag slippery prey. The creature moved with an unusual, almost awkward gait. Its weight seemed to be concentrated forward. Its hind legs were noticeably shorter than those Layla was accustomed to seeing in other giant theropods, and the body's center of gravity appeared shifted toward the front. Was not built like a land-based tyrant. It was built like something that belonged at the river's edge, a predator perfectly adapted to its unique environment. As the dinosaur turned further, Layla finally saw the sail. It rose from its back like a jagged, bony crown, elongated neural spines, some likely exceeding 1.5 meters in length, formed a spectacular structure that caught the filtered sunlight, making the animal appear even larger and more imposing than it already was. What was its purpose? Display, thermoregulation, fat storage, intimidation, courtship? The function of the sail was a question that had plagued paleontologists for decades. Nobody could agree. Everyone argued. The sail was a monumental billboard of evolutionary mystery. The dinosaur paused, water dripping from its jaws, and Layla realized she had been unconsciously holding her breath. Then she saw the tail. It wasn't the typically narrow tail of a classic theropod. The dinosaur paused, water dripping from its jaws, and Layla realized she had been unconsciously holding her breath. Then she saw the tail. It wasn't the typically narrow tail of a classic theropod. It looked tall and fin-like, almost like a rudder, perfectly shaped for propelling the animal through water, a paddle, a propeller. That discovered a major debate within the scientific community, and compelling new evidence had been announced and discussed fiercely in recent years. Seeing it, a whale, a predator, a giant Spinosaurus, her boots, a predator, a fish, a formidable, its just conical teeth piercing and gripping the struggling prey. The fish convulsed, sending tremors down the dinosaur's massive neck. Spinosaurus. This was the late Cretaceous as it truly was. Not a sanitized museum diorama, but a living, breathing world of constant struggle. And here in the rivers of ancient North Africa, Spinosaurus wasn't just a fossilized rumor, it was a undisputed ruler. This was the late Cretaceous as it truly was. Not a sanitized museum diorama, but a living, breathing world of constant struggle. And here in the rivers of ancient North Africa, Spinosaurus wasn't just a fossilized rumor, it was a undisputed ruler. Layla crouched behind a giant fern, watching the dinosaur drag its catch toward a shallower part of the riverbank. The sheer weight of the fish pressed into the yielding mud. The creature's feet left deep impressions, and she found herself wondering what those tracks would look like millions of years from now, fossilized in stone. What fascinating stories future scientists would debate and construct from them. She also wondered something far darker and more immediate. What else lurked in these waters? She had read enough about this prehistoric ecosystem to know that Spinosaurus didn't reign alone. The Chem region was a predator's paradise, or a living hell, depending on one's perspective. What else lurked in these waters? She had read enough about this prehistoric ecosystem to know that Spinosaurus didn't reign alone. The Chem region was a predator's paradise, or a living hell, depending on one's perspective. There were other giant theropods, including the fearsome Carcharodontosaurus, land-based hunters armed with teeth like serrated steak knives. There were massive crocodilians with jaws that functioned like inescapable traps. There were flying reptiles soaring overhead, casting huge, fleeting shadows that glided like living kites. And somewhere in the distant future of this timeline, the world was slowly, inexorably moving toward catastrophic extinction. Not yet. Not for tens of millions of years. But extinction was always waiting in the background, a patient and inevitable certainty. Layla was so completely focused on the Spinosaurus that she didn't notice the subtle change in the reeds along the shoreline until it was almost too late. The plants parted slightly. Something was watching her. Not the Spinosaurus, something lower to the ground, its eyes level with the muddy bank, a dark shape that barely moved. A crocodilian. Big. Bigger than any modern crocodile had a right to be. Its eyes were dark, unblinking, and its massive body was half submerged, perfectly still, ambush incarnate. Layla's breath caught in her throat. The animal's head shifted almost imperceptibly, and she caught a glimpse of teeth beneath its lip line. Not bared in a threatening snarl, but visible simply because the creature's mouth was built like a subterranean prison. She froze, her heart pounding so loudly she feared the river itself might hear it. If the crocodilian lunged, she would have absolutely no chance of escape. She had come to this time and place to see Spinosaurus. She might die because she had momentarily forgotten that this river wasn't owned by a single predator. Then, as if the world had decided she had already learned enough for one day, something enormous moved between her and the lurking crocodilian. A shadow fell across her hiding place. Spinosaurus, still hauling its massive prey, casually passed directly in front of her. The crocodilian didn't attack. It remained perfectly still, as if even it respected the River King's proximity and power. Layla exhaled slowly, barely daring to breathe. Spinosaurus, still hauling its massive prey, casually passed directly in front of her. The crocodilian didn't attack. It remained perfectly still, as if even it respected the River King's proximity and power. Layla exhaled slowly, barely daring to breathe. Spinosaurus dragged its fish further up the bank, then paused, lifting its head to scan the reeds. For a fleeting second, Layla thought it had sensed her presence. Its gaze felt heavy, even from this distance. Not human, not curious, just aware. And then it resumed its feeding, tearing at its prey not with slicing teeth, but with powerful gripping and shaking, using its immense body strength to rip flesh from bone. A stark reminder, even without serrated teeth, a predator of this size didn't need elegance to kill. Layla forced herself to back away, step by slow step, until the dense fern swallowed her once more. She needed to return to her own time. She needed to document everything she had witnessed. She needed, most of all, to survive, because she knew what people in her own time endlessly argued about: how long Spinosaurus really was, how much it weighed, whether it could comfortably walk on two legs, how much time it spent in the water, how it balanced, what the function of its mysterious sail truly was. She'd read the scientific papers. She knew the estimates: 14 to 16 meters long, possibly 6 to 8 tons, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the specific reconstruction. She knew it was one of the longest carnivorous dinosaurs ever discovered, maybe the longest, and that fact alone had cemented its legendary status. But seeing it alive in its own environment made the numbers feel like an inadequate language. Length didn't capture the sheer force of its presence. Weight didn't capture the feeling of its inescapable inevitability. Spinosaurus wasn't impressive simply because it was big. It was impressive because it was fundamentally different, because it proved that the dinosaur world wasn't a single monotonous story repeated endlessly. It had branches, experiments, same and unexpected evolutionary paths. Spinosaurus was a testament to one of those unique paths, a giant theropod that leaned into the water and transformed into something almost unimaginable. And Layla, muddy, shaken, but undeniably alive, turned back toward the faint shimmer of the chronoframe, hidden among the trees like a glitch in reality. She had data, she had a story to tell, but she hadn't yet grasped the whole truth. Not even close, because the real history of Spinosaurus wasn't confined to the Cretaceous rivers. It was also deeply interwoven with the history of our own world. In Egypt in 1912, when the first fossil fragments emerged from the sands; in 1915, when Stromer meticulously described and named the extraordinary beast; in the devastating tragedy of those original bones being destroyed during the chaos of World War II; in the subsequent decades of uncertainty and incomplete reconstructions; in the groundbreaking Moroccan discoveries that irrevocably changed our understanding of the creature; and in one fundamental question that never stayed answered for long: what was Spinosaurus, really? A specialized river hunter? A swamp stalker? A primarily land-based predator that simply enjoyed eating fish? Or something far stranger, something that defied simple categorization? Layla stepped toward the shimmering portal. Behind her, the river roared with life. Ahead of her, time itself waited. Spinosaurus, the River King of a Burning World, Part 2. When Layla stepped back through the chronoframe, the desert slammed back into her senses with brutal force. Dry air seared her lungs, sand scratched against her skin. Silence, absolute and unforgiving, pressed in from all sides. The lush river vanished as if it had never existed. The towering ferns dissolved into dust and memory. The incessant hum of insects faded into the mournful scrape of wind across ancient rock. She staggered slightly as the field stabilized, the sudden transition jarring her senses. Omar reached out and grabbed her arm, steadying her. "You were gone 12 minutes, he said, his voice betraying a hint of concern. Layla blinked at him, trying to reorient herself. 12 minutes. In those 12 minutes, she had watched a deadly predator hunt its prey. She had nearly been devoured by a creature that predated the rise of mammals. She had witnessed a dinosaur swim, a sight that defied everything she had previously believed. And for Omar, barely more than a coffee break had passed. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus. We need to document everything, every detail, now. The ghost of 1912. Back at the camp that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert sky in hues of orange and purple, Layla opened her notebook and began meticulously recording her observations. But to truly understand what she had seen, to fully appreciate the significance of her experience, she knew she needed to revisit the very beginning, not the dawn of the dinosaur's life in the Cretaceous period, but the genesis of its discovery by human hands. Spinosaurus was first unearthed in 1912 in Egypt's Bahariya Oasis, a remote and desolate location. German paleontologist Ernst Stromer, a man driven by an insatiable curiosity and a deep love for the ancient world, received fragments of bone from the site, strange vertebrae with impossibly tall spines that hinted at something truly extraordinary. German paleontologist Ernst Stromer, a man driven by an insatiable curiosity and a deep love for the ancient world, received fragments of bone from the site, strange vertebrae with impossibly tall spines that hinted at something truly extraordinary. 1915, after years of careful study and analysis, he formally described and named the unique creature, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, the spine lizard from Egypt. Stromer recognized that he had stumbled upon something truly unusual, a dinosaur unlike any other known to science. The neural spines, elongated bony projections rising from the vertebrae, were unlike anything he had ever seen. They formed what appeared to be a massive sail, a structure of unknown purpose that immediately set the creature apart. But the skeleton was incomplete, fragmented by the ravages of time. Little did Stromer know then just how controversial his discovery would eventually become, how fiercely paleontologists would debate the meaning of those strange spines for decades to come. The precious fossils were carefully housed in Munich, Germany, a place of relative safety at the time. Then came the devastating global conflict of World War II, a period of unprecedented destruction. In 1944, during a relentless Allied bombing raid on Munich, the museum where Stromer's fossils were stored was struck by a direct hit. The original Spinosaurus fossils, Stromer's irreplaceable specimens, were completely destroyed, reduced to ashes. For decades, Spinosaurus existed primarily as a collection of sketches, faded photographs, and Stromer's meticulous notes and detailed illustrations. An apex predator, once a tangible reality, was reduced to fragmented memories on paper. That tragic loss haunted the field of paleontology for generations, because without the original fossils to examine and compare, the task of reconstructing Spinosaurus became a matter of educated guesswork, speculation, and endless debate. And guesswork, as is often the case in science, inevitably breeds disagreement, the age of wrong pictures. For many years, Spinosaurus was conventionally reconstructed as a typical giant theropod, upright, well-balanced, with its tail dragging slightly behind it, its overall body plan resembling that of Tyrannosaurus rex, albeit with the addition of a massive sail on its back, tall, dominant, primarily land-based. But as more Spinosaurid fossils began to emerge from various locations around the world, especially those of related species like Baryonyx, a significantly different picture began to take shape. The skulls were long and narrow, more akin to those of modern-day crocodiles than to the robust skulls of other large theropods. The teeth were conical and smooth, not serrated like the sharp blade-like teeth of most carnivorous dinosaurs. The snouts of some specimens even displayed pressure-sensitive pits, similar to those found in crocodiles, suggesting they may have been used to detect subtle movements in the water. Fish-eaters, highly specialized predators, Spinosaurus was part of a unique group of theropods known as the Spinosauridae, a fascinating family of dinosaurs that had clearly adapted for piscivory, a diet consisting primarily of fish. But Spinosaurus was the undisputed giant of them all, larger than Baryonyx, larger than any other known Spinosaurid, possibly reaching lengths of 14 to 16 meters, making it one of the longest carnivorous dinosaurs ever discovered. Possibly weighing 6 to 8 tons, longer than the mighty T-Rex, but fundamentally different in its build, its behavior, and its ecological niche. Morocco changes everything. The most significant shift in our understanding of Spinosaurus occurred in North Africa, specifically in Morocco's rich and fossiliferous chem beds. New fossils began to emerge from the ancient sediments, offering tantalizing clues about the elusive creature. Vertebrae, limb bones, partial skull elements. Not Egypt this time, Morocco. The very same region where Layla now stood, searching for answers among the shifting sands. And these newly discovered fossils were undeniably strange, exhibiting characteristics that challenged previous assumptions. The hind legs were shorter than expected, seemingly disproportionate to the animal's massive size. The bones were unusually dense, far denser than those of most other theropods of comparable size. Almost like the dense bones of modern aquatic animals, creatures that require ballast to maintain stability and control their buoyancy while submerged. 2020, a remarkable breakthrough occurred, an event that would forever alter the course of Spinosaurus research. A tail was discovered, tall, fin-shaped, and remarkably flexible, unlike any other theropod tail ever seen before. The unique shape of the tail alone strongly suggested a primary means of propulsion through water, not casual wading along the shoreline, active swimming. Spinosaurus wasn't just standing in rivers to catch fish. It was actively hunting in them, spending a significant portion of its life submerged, intentionally, a dinosaur that swam. That radical idea alone shattered decades of deeply ingrained assumptions about theropod evolution and behavior. Because theropods were supposed to be the dominant terrestrial predators, the undisputed rulers of the land. And here was a creature that was rewriting the rules, blurring the lines between land and water. Back to the river, Layla didn't hesitate to return to the Cretaceous River. The chronoframe flickered to life once more beneath a dense canopy of prehistoric foliage. This time, she strategically positioned herself on higher ground overlooking a broad bend in the river, providing her with a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape. The oppressive humidity wrapped around her like a damp cloak, and then she saw something truly unexpected, something that made her heart leap in her chest. Two sails, two Spinosauruses. One stood partly submerged near the muddy bank, its massive body casting a long shadow across the water. The other approached slowly from upstream, its movements deliberate and measured. Both were enormous, awe-inspiring in their size and power. Both were eerily silent, their presence commanding attention without a single sound. The approaching Spinosaurus lifted its head slightly, fully exposing the impressive curve of its sail in profile. The two sails were not identical. One appeared to be slightly taller, its spines reaching even higher into the air. The other was noticeably wider at the base, suggesting a different underlying structure. Display, sexual dimorphism, intimidation. The larger of the two Spinosauruses exhaled sharply, a low, resonant sound that vibrated across the water, sending ripples spreading toward the opposite bank. The second Spinosaurus did not retreat. Instead, it turned slightly, presenting its sail broadside to its rival, maximizing its visual impact, a billboard. Layla's mind raced, trying to interpret the scene unfolding before her. The sail could have served a variety of functions, including thermoregulation, absorbing heat from the sun or dissipating excess heat to cool the animal down. But here, in the context of the river, it seemed to be functioning more as a visual signal, a form of communication. A declaration dominance was being established without the need for immediate bloodshed. But the underlying tension was palpable, simmering just beneath the surface. Suddenly, the sheer, no death, the sail, not alone, on the far, its teeth, but the vast, the sheer, it was each creature in her own Rex and sparking, separated by continents, by oceans, by millions of years of evolutionary history. T-Rex roamed North America, a tyrant king ruling over its domain. Spinosaurus dominated North Africa, a river king reigning supreme in its watery realm. They never met, never clashed. Their rivalry existed only in the realm of imagination. The debate was fictional, a product of human fascination with power and dominance, a desire to create narratives out of the distant past. The ecosystems were separate, two distinct worlds, each with its own unique set of challenges and opportunities, shaping the creatures that inhabited them. And seeing Spinosaurus in its own world made the comparison feel irrelevant. It was like comparing a shark to a lion, two apex predators perfectly adapted to their different environments. It was not trying to be a tyrant. It wasn't striving for global domination for the title of King of the Dinosaurs. It was something else entirely, something unique, something specialized, something perfectly adapted to its watery world. The weight of the bones became profoundly clear to Layla. Layla noticed something else when the dominant Spinosaurus climbed partially onto a mudbank. The sun glinted off its scales, revealing the texture of its skin. Its body did not wobble like a land predator uncertain near water. There was no hesitation, no awkwardness in its movements. It moved confidently, with a fluidity that spoke of mastery over both land and water. It owned this space, this transition zone between two worlds. The dense bones that scientists had measured in fossils made sense now. The data, the numbers, the scientific analysis all coalesced into a tangible reality before her eyes. This creature needed weight. It owned this space, this transition zone between two worlds. The dense bones that scientists had measured in fossils made sense now. The data, the numbers, the scientific analysis all coalesced into a tangible reality before her eyes. This creature needed weight, needed a counterweight to the buoyancy of water, a way to stay submerged, to control its movements in its aquatic domain. Ballast, an anchor in the river allowing it to hunt effectively, to ambush prey from below, to maintain its position against the current. Without dense bones, it would float awkwardly, bobbing on the surface like a cork. It would lose its ability to hunt effectively, to control its movements, to survive in its chosen environment. With them, it could submerge smoothly, silently, becoming one with the water. It could disappear from sight, then reappear in an instant, striking with deadly precision. Every part of its anatomy reflected adaptation, a testament to the power of natural selection, the relentless pressure to survive and reproduce. The nostril, the power, it was the fit, raw, the corn, the shape, a name that resonated with doom, a symbol of the fragility of existence. Mass extinction, a wave of death sweeping across the globe, wiping out entire lineages. Non-avian dinosaurs would vanish. The age, its reign, given us debate, the chrono, she had unanswered, its miniature, Layla, Spinosaurus, mistral, the she had water, she moved, the mud, not the, a thought, she was a series, still, the juvenile dipped its snout into the water and snaps sideways, emerging with something small, likely a fish or amphibian. A quick strike, a lucky catch. Its movements were less confident than the adults. It seemed almost awkward, unsure of itself. It shook its head clumsily, nearly losing the catch. A rookie. Layla felt something unexpected rise in her chest. A surge of empathy, tenderness, a sense of connection to this young creature struggling to survive in a dangerous world, because for all its future dominance, this was still an animal learning, a child in a brutal ecosystem. Its teeth, straight, conical, already specialized, were perfect for gripping, designed for grabbing the slippery prey. But its coordination lagged behind instinct. Its execution was still flawed, because for all its future dominance, this was still an animal learning, a child in a brutal ecosystem. Its teeth, straight, conical, already specialized, were perfect for gripping, designed for grabbing the slippery prey. But its coordination lagged behind instinct. Its execution was still flawed. It tried again, undeterred, missed. The water swirled as the creature failed again, snapped air, an empty strike, then adjusted position and struck with better timing, learning from its mistakes. Success. It had adapted and overcome. She studied its limbs. She focused all her attention on its form. It tried again, undeterred, missed. The water swirled as the creature failed again, snapped air, an empty strike, then adjusted position and struck with better timing, learning from its mistakes. Success. It had adapted and overcome. She studied its limbs. She focused all her attention on its form. The forearms were strong even at this stage, powerful. The claws curved sharply, like hooks ready to seize any prize. The hind legs were relatively short compared to body length, consistent with adult proportions. The whole body looked as though it had been built to hunt from an early age. This confirmed something important. Layla's hypothesis had been proven. Spinosaurus did not transition into aquatic adaptation late in life. It had not been forced to adapt later in life. It was built that way from youth, ready to hunt and kill in water. The specialization was fundamental, part of its DNA. Growth and evolution became one in Layla's mind. Layla thought of the fossil record, the broken fragments of lost lives. Spinosaurus fossils were incomplete, fragmented, often disarticulated. The river ecosystem was not kind to the dead. North African river systems of the Cretaceous were dynamic environments. The whole region was a melting pot of life and death. Floods shifted sediments. The rivers could move a whole valley in a day. Carcasses scattered. The remains were thrown about, broken apart, and mixed up. Complete skeletons were rare. A whole Spinosaurus skeleton was a prize beyond measure. That scarcity fueled controversy. It would take time to piece together any sort of full understanding. How much time did Spinosaurus spend in water? A mystery she was now unraveling. Could it move efficiently on land? A vital question she needed to answer. Was it primarily aquatic or semi-aquatic? The debate raged on. The evidence, dense bones, tail shape, nostril placement, skull morphology pointed toward a lifestyle more aquatic than any other known theropod. The evidence was mounting. But extremes are dangerous in science. Black and white was rarely the truth. Nature is rarely absolute. All species lived in a space between extremes. Watching the juvenile, Layla saw it step fully onto the bank. The Spinosaurus was confident. It walked comfortably, not awkwardly. All her suspicions were allayed, not dragging, balanced, 2 legs. This was no clumsy waddle. Balanced, sure-footed. Its tail hung slightly elevated behind it, perfect poise for traversing the terrain. So it was not helpless on land, capable on land, though perhaps not at speed, just adapted differently. She filed all the details away. Evolution had not stripped it of terrestrial function. She had been correct. It had layered aquatic specialization on top of a theropod blueprint. A complex evolutionary design, an evolutionary experiment indeed. She understood that this wasn't just about hunting and killing. It was about the long game of life. Storm over the river was brewing. The air shifted. Layla felt it first as pressure, subtle but real. The atmosphere changed around her. The insects grew quieter. They sensed it first. The juvenile lifted its head, scanning, alerted. Then thunder rolled across the sky, a rumble in the distance, a storm. Layla braced herself. Cretaceous weather systems could be violent, unpredictable. Warm, humid atmospheres fuel energy. The heat was intense. Wind tore through the canopy. The forest, the juve debris caught in the, it moved, the juve adapt, the storm, the freeze, for a moment, the plant, the current, the thrum, it was, she shut, when the, she revived, it's, everything, the perf, was it, were the, but watching the animal live made one thing clear, doubt remained, but so did truth. Spinosaurus was not a myth exaggerated by fragments. It had existed. It was real. It was more real to Layla than the people from her world. And it was unlike anything else in the dinosaur record. Glimpse of the future was upon her. As sunset painted the sky orange, Layla climbed to higher ground overlooking the main river channel. She could see the world change. In the distance, 2 adult Spinosauruses occupied separate territories along a bend. The world was vast. They did not approach each other. Territorial boundaries defined them. The river divided them, separating and allowing them to hunt. Territory shaped by water access. The river dictated their lives. Apex predators structured by ecosystem geography. They existed in equilibrium. Above them, pterosaurs wheeled, filling the skies. Along the far forest line, she glimpsed the silhouette of Carcharodontosaurus again. Still it lingered. Predators coexisting through specialization, the key to a balanced ecosystem. Balance through difference. She had found it. This ecosystem was not chaos. Each part had a place. It was partitioned dominance. She wrote and recorded it all, and Spinosaurus was the river's architect, the keystone. Layla stepped back through the chronoframe once more, soaked, exhausted, alive. The experience had changed her. The Moroccan desert greeted her again, dry, harsh, silent, a world away from the lush Cretaceous. But now she carried something more than data. She had achieved what no other had. She carried perspective, the key to understanding. Spinosaurus was not simply the dinosaur that beat T-Rex in a movie. It was more, not just the longest carnivorous dinosaur. Its dimensions were only a small part of the story. Not merely a fossil with a sail, its features were not just aesthetics. It was more, not just the longest carnivorous dinosaur. Its dimensions were only a small part of the story. Not merely a fossil with a sail, its features were not just aesthetics. It was a semi-aquatic giant both of water and earth. A fish specialist adapted to hunting in the rivers. A dinosaur with dense bones for buoyancy control built to move below the surface. A predator with a paddle tail providing thrust in its domain. A hunter adapted for river systems made by its environment. An evolutionary outlier, an experiment in adaptation. A scientific controversy fueling the debate. A story nearly lost in war, a tragedy almost forgotten. A creature reshaped by modern discoveries, a reconstruction of the past. One of the strangest apex predators to ever live, the strangest of its kind, and she had only begun to understand it. There was so much more to learn. Because there was still one question she had not answered, the greatest mystery of all. Why did evolution allow such a specialized giant to exist? What were the rules? And what caused its lineage to end? The death of the River King, The desert wind howled across the Kem cliffs. The wind whispered a silent song of destruction. Layla stared at the fossil bones still embedded in stone, the remnants of a lost world. She would return again. This had become more than science, but next time, the time for observation was over. She would look for death, to look upon the dying animal and know its secrets, because to understand a king, you must understand how empires fall. Spinosaurus, the River King of a Burning World, Part 4, was calling to her, never the River King in motion. The Fall of a Kingdom. Layla made her final return to the late Cretaceous River. This time, her quest wasn't for displays of power, but for the subtle signs of decline, the whispers of an empire crumbling. She sought not the apex predator in its prime, but the unraveling of its reign. She found her evidence not in grand pronouncements, but in the quiet details of a dying ecosystem. Carcasses, once swiftly devoured, now lay half-eaten, attracting scavengers and insects in greater numbers. The feast of the River King was becoming a buffet for all. Territorial overlaps were on the rise, the invisible boundaries between domains blurring as desperation drove rivals closer. The once clear lines of dominance were fading like watercolor in the rain. Juveniles, the future of the kingdom, engaged in increasingly aggressive competition, their struggles reflecting the scarcity they faced. The promise of a new generation was overshadowed by a fight for survival. The viable hunting grounds, once teeming with prey, were narrowing, forcing the Spinosaurus and its rivals into a dwindling arena. The river, once a source of abundance, was slowly tightening its grip. The dominant adult, the one she had first witnessed in all its glory, now bore the visible marks of hardship. New scars crisscrossed its flanks, a testament to battles fought and won, but at a cost. Its sail, once a proud banner, was torn in places, like a flag weathered by relentless storms. The dominant adult, the one she had first witnessed in all its glory, now bore the visible marks of hardship. New scars crisscrossed its flanks, a testament to battles fought and won, but at a cost. Its sail, once a proud banner, was torn in places, like a flag weathered by relentless storms. Its movements, though still commanding, were subtly slower, the energy of its prime replaced with a weary determination. It still commanded the river, its presence enough to keep most challengers at bay. But power demands energy, a constant and inexhaustible supply, and energy depends on stability, a delicate balance within the intricate web of life. And stability in ecosystems is as fragile as spun glass, easily shattered by the slightest tremor. As dusk began to settle, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the Spinosaurus lumbered onto a central sandbar, a familiar stage for its nightly ritual. The river, reflecting the fading light, glowed gold around it, creating a breathtaking spectacle of nature's grandeur. Sail caught the last rays of the sun like a burning banner, a fiery emblem against the encroaching darkness. For a fleeting moment it looked eternal, an embodiment of power and resilience, like something that could never vanish, a timeless ruler of a timeless realm. But Layla knew better. Its sail caught the last rays of the sun like a burning banner, a fiery emblem against the encroaching darkness. For a fleeting moment it looked eternal, an embodiment of power and resilience, like something that could never vanish, a timeless ruler of a timeless realm. But Layla knew better. Everything vanishes eventually, succumbing to the relentless march of time. Giants, even kings, even empires crumble into dust, return to stone. When Layla stepped back through the chronoframe for the final time, leaving the Cretaceous twilight behind, she did not feel the exhilaration of triumph, the thrill of discovery. Instead, she felt a profound sense of humility, a humbling realization of the impermanence of all things. Spinosaurus was not simply the longest carnivorous dinosaur, a record holder in the annals of paleontology. The semi-aquatic theropod, a pioneer venturing into a new ecological niche. The sail-backed giant, an architectural marvel of evolution. rival of movie fame, cinematic icon battling for supremacy. It was a stark reminder of nature's grand experiment, evolution experiments pushing the boundaries of life's possibilities. Nature adapts, constantly reinventing itself in response to ever-changing conditions. Dominance shifts, the crown of power passing from one species to another in an endless cycle. Specialization triumphs, allowing for unparalleled success until it doesn't, until the very adaptation that brought glory becomes a liability. And the desert remembers everything, holding within its sands the ghosts of vanished worlds. The Sahara was once a river kingdom, a vibrant tapestry of life woven along the banks of ancient waterways. Now it is wind and silence, an ocean of sand stretching to the horizon. But beneath it lie bones, the skeletal remains of a forgotten dynasty, dense, heavy, ballast for a predator that once swam where sand now blows, a testament to a life lived in water. Layla carefully brushed sand from the exposed fossil in Morocco, revealing a fragment of the past, and whispered quietly, "You were real." And in that moment, the river roared again in her memory, not as a scientific abstraction, but as a living, breathing reality. Not as myth, a legend whispered through time, not as debate, a subject of endless scrutiny, but as life, vibrant and untamed. Spinosaurus, the river king of a burning world. Part 5, Epilogue of Stone and Time. The desert possessed a quietude unlike any river, a stillness that resonated with ancient secrets. Wind, the sculptor of the dunes, passed over the Kem cliffs like breath over bone, shaping and reshaping the landscape. Sand shifted, a constant dance of particles under the relentless sun. Heat shimmered, creating mirages that blurred the line between reality and illusion. The world appeared empty, devoid of life and history. But Layla no longer saw emptiness, the desolate expanse of sand. She saw layers, a palimpsest of time etched into the very fabric of the earth. Beneath her be floodplains, the fertile grounds that once nourished a thriving ecosystem. Beneath those floodplains, ancient river channels, the veins of a vanished world. Beneath those channels, the compressed memory of millions of seasons, a geological record of life and death. She knelt beside the fossil once more, the dense fragment she had uncovered days ago, a rib or part of one, heavy in the hand even after 95 million years, a tangible link to the past. Dense bones designed for a life submerged in water, ballast for a predator built to submerge, a counterweight to its enormous size. She closed her eyes and allowed the desert to dissolve one final time, not by stepping through the chronoframe and traveling physically, but through the power of memory, a journey inward. Because now she understood something deeper, a fundamental truth that transcended scientific data. Spinosaurus was not merely a dinosaur, a specimen to be studied and categorized. It was a question, a profound inquiry into the nature of life and the fragility of existence. The river that no longer exists. Once, this land was a vast network of rivers that braided and shifted across northern Africa, a watery paradise teeming with life. The Kem ecosystem was not static, an unchanging tableau. It was dynamic, a constantly evolving landscape shaped by the ebb and flow of water. Lush floodplains provided fertile ground for vegetation. Mangrove-like wetlands offered refuge for countless species. Immense fish populations thrived in the rivers. Crocodilians larger than modern saltwater giants lurked in the shallows, and among them the sail-backed predator that bent evolution in an unexpected direction. Spinosaurus was not built like the tyrants of North America, the apex predators of another continent. It did not rely on slicing teeth like Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of the Cretaceous. It did not run with the long, proportioned legs of Allosaurus, built for speed and agility. It did not mirror Carcharodontosaurus, whose blade-like serrated teeth tore muscle with brutal efficiency. Instead, it evolved a long, crocodile-like skull, perfectly adapted for hunting in the water. It developed straight, conical teeth ideal for gripping fish, a specialized tool for its primary prey. Its nostrils shifted back on the skull, allowing it to breathe while partially submerged. Its bones became unusually dense, providing ballast for underwater maneuvering. Its tail transformed into a fin-like paddle, a powerful propeller for aquatic propulsion. Its center of gravity shifted forward, enhancing its balance in the water. Its hind legs shortened, sacrificing land speed for swimming efficiency. Its forearms strengthened, allowing it to grapple with prey. Its neural spines elongated into a sail rising over 15 meters tall, a striking display that served multiple purposes. Each adaptation whispered the same truth, a testament to the power of natural selection. This was not a land tyrant experimenting with water, a terrestrial predator dabbling in a new environment. This was a river predator that happened to be a dinosaur, a creature perfectly sculpted for an aquatic life. A creature lost twice. Spinosaurus was lost once in deep time, vanishing from the face of the earth millions of years ago, then lost again in war, its legacy seemingly erased by human conflict. Stromer, the paleontologist who first described the Spinosaurus in 1915, could not have imagined that the bones he meticulously documented would be destroyed in 1944 by bombs falling over Munich, the cruel hand of fate intervening. The original skeleton, the holotype that defined the species, vanished in fire and rubble, a tragic loss for science. For decades, the River King existed only in drawings and debate, a phantom limb in the collective memory of paleontology. Science reconstructed it as best it could, piecing together fragments of knowledge to recreate a lost world. And science got parts of it wrong, a natural consequence of incomplete data and evolving understanding. That was not failure, but the scientific process at work. That was the fossil record doing what it does, offering fragments, glimpses of the past, and demanding humility from those who seek to interpret them. Then Morocco spoke, revealing secrets buried for millennia. New fossils emerged from the chem beds, whispers from the past brought to light. New vertebrae, offering insights into the animal's spine and posture. New limb bones revealing clues about its gait and locomotion, and finally the tale that changed everything, a revelation that overturned long-held assumptions, the paddle tail, an aquatic adaptation beyond anything previously imagined. Announced in modern times, it reshaped understanding of the dinosaur entirely, ushering in a new era of Spinosaurus research, a swimming theropod, a concept once considered outlandish, not hypothetical, a mere possibility, not speculative based on circumstantial evidence, documented in bone, undeniable proof of its aquatic prowess. Spinosaurus forced paleontology to reconsider what large carnivorous dinosaurs were capable of, expanding the boundaries of what was thought possible. The longest carnivore. Among known carnivorous dinosaurs, Spinosaurus may have been the longest, exceeding even the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex in sheer size. Estimates suggest 14 to 16 meters in length, a truly colossal creature, possibly exceeding Tyrannosaurus rex in total body length, making it the undisputed champion in terms of overall dimensions. Weighing perhaps 6 to 8 tons, though estimates vary depending on the reconstruction, a significant mass by any standard, but length alone does not define dominance, does not tell the whole story. It was the shape that mattered, the unique combination of features that set it apart from all other predators, the strangeness, the unusual adaptations that defied conventional expectations, the refusal to conform to the typical theropod blueprint, a testament to the power of evolutionary experimentation. Territory and balance. In life, Spinosaurus likely dominated river systems of North Africa between 100 and 93 million years ago, reigning supreme in its aquatic domain, lived alongside giant crocodilians, formidable predators in their own right. Massive fish like Onchopristis, some of the largest bony fish to ever live. Flying reptiles overhead, adding another dimension to the already complex ecosystem. Terrestrial giants like Carcharodontosaurus competing for resources on land. Each predator carved a niche, finding its own way to thrive in a world teeming with life and danger. The land belonged to some, their domain clearly defined. The rivers belonged to Spinosaurus, its kingdom of water. Sail likely played roles in visual display, attracting mates and intimidating rivals. Intimidation, projecting an aura of power and dominance. Possibly thermoregulation, regulating its body temperature in the warm climate. Because dominance, unlike generalist predators, which can adapt to a wider range of conditions and prey, a specialist must adapt or disappear, facing extinction as its niche vanishes. Spina prey only it's safe, but it is a she turned stone. How fast? How did because sand, but beneath wetland. Predator because and perhaps the desert along a sail rising like a banner against the humid sky, a symbol of its reign. The River King, the ruler of a lost world, gone, vanished from the earth, but not forgotten, its legacy enduring through time. Because as long as bone remains, a tangible link to the past, as long as scientists question, driven by curiosity, thirst for knowledge, as long as sand hides rivers beneath, reminder of a vanished world, Spinosaurus swims. Not in water, its reign of the rivers long past, but in memory, a vivid image that continues to inspire wonder and awe. And so the river falls silent. Spinosaurus, once ruler of ancient waterways, master of floodplains and shifting currents, fades back into stone and memory. In today's episode, we explored not just the size of this incredible predator, but its adaptations, its swimming abilities, its lost fossils, its rediscovery, and the fragile balance of the ecosystem that shaped it. Perhaps Spinosaurus was not simply a giant dinosaur. Perhaps it was evolution's boldest experiment, a creature that blurred the line between land and water. But what do you think? Was Spinosaurus truly the river king we imagine? Or is there still more waiting beneath the sands of Morocco? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed drifting through deep time with us, don't forget to subscribe to 100 Sleepy Facts for more relaxing journeys into prehistoric worlds, forgotten creatures, and the quiet mysteries of ancient life. Till next time, sleep well and let history carry you away.